Welcome to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.
In this podcast, we will delve into the declining mental health of the EU's young people, one of the 15 risks identified and analysed by the EPRS in their Future Shocks 2023 report. Want to know more? Stay with us.
With the COVID-19 pandemic, the return of war to Europe, the energy crisis, the rising cost of living, all on top of a climate crisis, today's young Europeans are growing up in a volatile and difficult world.
Many of them also face difficulties affording housing, finding a fulfilling job, or simply any job, and just keeping their heads above water. And underpinning all these changes and difficulties is digitalization, which has completely changed the rules of the game and defined new ways to socialize, work and live. All this is taking a toll on young people's mental health.
The figures are staggering. 9 million adolescents aged 10 to 19 in Europe, that's over 1 in 10, live with a mental disorder. And suicide is the second most common cause of death, claiming 3 young lives per day. And it could get worse.
Because mental health is influenced by a complex mix of socio-economic, environmental and genetic factors, all these shifts and shocks could threaten our young people's mental health and well-being in the long term and make a mark for the rest of their adult lives, with consequences that go far beyond the individual.
So what can the EU do to help support mental resilience and ensure that young people grow to become mentally sound and healthy adults?
Well, fostering social cohesion, providing societal support and solidarity is extremely important. But first, it's important to understand the unique challenges young Europeans are facing. And the authors of the Future Shocks 2023 report have identified 6 major trends that could contribute to a perfect storm on young people's mental health. Stay with us.
The first trend is the digitalization of life, which not only heightens the risk of digital addiction, but also of exposure to dangerous and illegal content, and can cause a feeling of loneliness in young people from lack of real-world human interactions. Here's Virginia Mayer from EPRS.
Smartphones, tablets, and the internet have completely changed the world in which today's young people are growing up compared to just a couple generations ago. And this can have an impact on how their brains develop. We don't yet know the consequences of this, but some experts are raising an alarm bell that too much screen time for children could reduce physical activity and affect their attention span and the way they manage emotions, ultimately harming their mental health.
A second risk factor is climate anxiety, which is disproportionately burdening children and young adults.
According to a study conducted by the medical journal The Lancet among 16 to 25-year-olds in 10 different countries, 3 of these European, a majority of them felt betrayed rather than reassured by government's action on climate change. And while climate anxiety can drive them to act positively for the environment, it can also exacerbate mental problems if left unmanaged. Here's Gregor Erbach from EPRS.
It's important to understand that climate anxiety as such is not a mental health problem, but it is a normal adaptive reaction to the very real threats of climate change. On the one hand, it's an alarm system that can lead to positive action and build resilience, but on the other hand, chronic stress and fear increase the risk of developing mental health problems.
And from climate to health, according to many sources, the COVID-19 pandemic led to an unprecedented rise in mental health disorders, especially among young people.
Long periods of isolation, combined with fear and uncertainty, and for some, financial stress and job insecurity, caused depression in young adults to almost double in several European countries. And the long-term effects of replacing the real world by a digital one for so many months still need more research.
And next to these 3 risk factors, there are also deepening social divisions, economic stress, and a polarization of the information sphere, which are also extremely consequential for the mental health and societal well-being of citizens of all ages.
So how could a broad decline in mental health impact our societies?
At the individual level, untreated mental disorders can lead to poor quality of life, unemployment, disability, homelessness, incarceration, and suicide. And meeting these increased mental health care needs could put an even greater burden on already strained mental health services and welfare systems across Europe.
And that's not even taking into account the economic costs to society, which the OECD estimates to be around 600 billion euros annually across the EU, and the risk of societal dissatisfaction that could spur populism, Euroscepticism, and threaten our democracies.
But every cloud has a silver lining. And fortunately, mental health issues are no longer being swept under the carpet, but getting increasing recognition and visibility, which is extremely important to counter stigma and act in time.
So how can we expect the mental health of our young adults to evolve in the future? And what consequences may that have for society at large?
The European Parliamentary Research Service has envisaged several scenarios to explore the impacts of a decline in mental health and societal well-being in today's young Europeans, projected in late 2030, ranging from the most optimistic to the least. And while everything is possible, one lesson prevails.
To mitigate a rise in mental health disorders and general societal dissatisfaction among the young, the European Union needs to work along two strands. To continue building its resilience against major future shocks such as climate change, while fostering the well-being and social cohesion of its citizens and ensuring fair access to proper treatment and support for those struggling.
Furthermore, we need to better understand the mental health risks of digital technologies for young people, particularly in the long term, to see how they may translate into adulthood.
And while the EU only has a subsidiary role in public health, it can play a key role in sharing information and supporting cohesion across the Union. And steps are being taken.
In June this year, the European Commission adopted its first ever mental health strategy to support EU countries in putting people and their mental health first, paying special attention to the challenges and needs of children and young people.
Want to know more? Check out Virginia Mayer and Gregor Erbach's full chapter on the mental health of young Europeans as part of the EPRS Future Shocks 2023 study.
This is a European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.
Thanks for listening.